Mastrop has teamed up with the esports team over at Rocat to carry an exclusive professional-grade mouse. With extreme precision and DPI with built-in technology called Owl Eye, the Rocat mouse is perfect for serious competitive gamers in FPS, MOBAs, MMOs, and more. The Rocat mouse is on discount only on Mastrop for this week, so check out the link in the description and get your Rocat gear today. Hey y'all, Moses here. Today we're going to be talking about DMRs. I've been wanting to do this video for a while, and I think it's now time that we sit down and really take a look at what the best DMR is, or if we can even identify what the best DMR is. Lots of choices since the weapon balance patch came out a few months ago, and since that time, the Mini 14, SKS, and SLR have risen to prominence right alongside the old trusty Kar 98, and now the M24 as well, which found its way out of the crate and into the world spawn not too long ago. So with that said, let's get started. So I just mentioned the weapons balance patch, and for those of you who've had your head in sand or have just been not paying attention, the weapon balance patch really allowed DMRs to come into their own now that they take AR attachments and are much easier to fit than they had been in the past. The SLR was added to the game, the newest world spawn DMR, and ultimately your goal if you love DMRs is to grab that Mark 14, which is still a crate spawn. So DMRs now find themselves in regular rotation along with SMGs, whereas before both of those categories were relatively underserved compared to bolt-action rifles and just the prevalence of ARs in the meta before the weapon balance patch. So in speaking about bolt-action rifles, the prevalent sniper choice all the way through early access and mostly through 1.0 up until the weapon balance patch, it's now a matter of choice. Do you want to opt for the one-shot kill potential of the Kar 98 and M24, or do you want the even consistency and flexibility of a DMR? At this point for me, it's 50-50. I really think that both categories bring benefits to the table. Obviously, if you can hit your shots, the bolt-action rifle is still a great choice, but I still find myself, as a person who can hit shots, choosing the DMR over the bolt-action rifle, especially now on the new Sandhawk map, which is my currently preferred map along with a lot of the player base. It has a lot of action, etc., but that's for a different video. The bolt-action rifle doesn't seem to quite fit on Sandhawk, so I find myself again using things like the Mini or the SKS or even the SLR from time to time, and that really makes me think, would this translate to other maps as well? So we're not going to be going map specific in this video, but we're going to be taking a wide view of how to use DMRs in specific scenarios, comparing their different uses, and then ultimately comparing them to the bolt-action rifle from an efficiency standpoint as well. So let's jump into the ins and outs of the DMRs and check out the lineup. The Mini 14 is the only 5.56 DMR in the game. It does a base damage of 46 and has the highest bullet speed in the game at 990 meters a second. The SKS does 53 base damage, can take both a grip and a cheek pad in addition to its other attachments, and the SLR does 58 base damage and takes only a cheek pad additional to both the muzzle, clip, and scope attachments. The Mark 14, the crate weapon DMR, does 61 base damage and takes all the same attachments as the SLR. I'll get into the specifics of fitting your DMR in just a little while, but first I want to talk about how you can integrate a DMR into your preferred loadout. Now, the best thing about these weapons is that they are so flexible that it doesn't really matter what you pair them with from a primary weapon. If you're like me and you prefer to use an AR, a DMR will fit into your weapon loadout nicely. It doesn't really matter what you choose because you're going to be using the AR for your up-close engagements most of the time anyway, and the DMR will act as it's supposed to as your precision option at both medium and long distance. If you're an SMG user, I would definitely recommend using a DMR even over a bolt-action rifle to give yourself that flexibility in the mid-range where SMGs can be weak. And really, if you want, you can even double up on DMRs or even DMR bolt-action rifle if you want to. The SLR and SKS can definitely be used as a primary weapon, and the Mini 14 can as well. It does similar damage to an AR and has similar recoil control capabilities. As far as pairing a DMR with a Kar 98 or an M24, I mean, that's up to you. I think that it can be viable, but you may lose out in those full auto engagements up close. Now it's time to talk hits to kill and time to kill, something I've done for both SMGs and ARs in the past. So there's a bit of a caveat with DMRs, but I'll get to that once we go through the stats. Just a heads up, I'm using level 3 armor and helmet as the baseline, so this will be the maximum amount of hits and the maximum amount of time to kill any target in the game with these DMRs. So you can see as we go through, obviously the Mini has the highest hits to kill, The SKS, SLR, and even the Mark 14 are all very similar unless you're hitting people in the upper legs, which are unarmored portions of the body and will result in lower hits to kill. Now, as far as time to kill is concerned, the Mini 14 has the highest time to kill at 0.4 if you hit only chest shots, 0.2 if you hit them in the head, and the SKS has a slightly faster time to kill at 0.3 anywhere in the upper body and 0.1 if you manage to hit back-to-back shots. And the SLR is very similar, with the Mark 14 just a little bit faster at 0.27 anywhere in the upper body. This is where the caveat comes in. The time to kill stat does not really matter, I guess, when it comes to DMRs, because you're having to reacquire a target and control recoil, likely on the move, since none of these weapons are going to one-shot a target with level 3 armor or a helmet. So you're going to have to land consecutive shots, which means time to kill will be skewed by enemy evading or just misses, recoil control. So in this instance, I would really like to focus on hits to kill because that's going to be the most important stat. Now it's time to talk about practicality, which I think is a huge portion of whatever argument you want to make for what DMR is the best. Practicality to me is it easy to use? Is it easy to fit? And is it going to work in whatever my loadout is? So all of the DMRs I think are going to work with most loadouts. So that's one question answered relatively easily. Beyond that, it now comes to, is it easy to use and is it easy to fit? When it comes to easy to fit, obviously the SLR and the Mini have a benefit because they simply take less attachments. And when it comes to easy to use, the Mini is easier to use than the SLR due to its lower recoil and higher bullet speed. So the SKS comes kind of in the middle if we're looking at it from a scenario where we can simulate having all the loot we ever wanted. The SKS is probably the best DMR most of the time because it has the upside of damage and the upside of both recoil control when fully kitted. But we, of course, do not play in a simulated environment. We have to put those attachments on the SKS all the time. So that's where I've stopped using the SKS. The SKS is just a little bit too hard to fit. I can't quite ever find all the stuff I want when it's time to use the SKS, unless I got lucky with loot or finding loot on dead bodies. So really, for me, the Mini has risen to prominence. The SLR is a close second, don't get me wrong, especially on maps like Miramar, where that damage at long range is more useful, and you just don't want enemies getting away because you're taking 5 shots to kill with the Minis. Damage aside, there are a few other factors that I think you need to consider when choosing a DMR for your loadout. Do you have ammo synergy with your primary weapon? 7.62 takes up more inventory space, so you'll be carrying less meds. If you do use a 5.56 AR like I do, you'll be able to carry more ammunition for both your secondary and primary weapon if you choose the Mini. So all of these things need to be considered, and I won't get into the ins and outs of inventory management, but I can say with the increased weight of grenades, you want to be able to carry as much utility as possible, so you don't want your ammunition taking up too much space. This is where it starts to seem like the Mini is the overall best choice. You don't have that 4 shots to kill advantage that you'll have with the SLR or the SKS, but you'll be carrying less ammunition, you'll be shooting more precise and at a higher speed, which is an important thing to note in one-to-one gunfights, especially in medium range. The SKS requires a little bit more precision when it comes to aiming, but the Mini you can kind of spam even when peeking. So really, I think the Mini, with its recoil control, becomes very versatile, and I think you can kind of see where this is going. Between all the maps, and considering how easy it is to use and how easy it is to fit, I'm selecting the Mini 14 as the current best practical use DMR in the game. Now, I'm sure that's going to upset some of the SKS and SLR fans out there, and don't get me wrong, the Mark 14 is probably still the best DMR in the game, but you have to be able to get it from crates, and that's something that is a little bit of a challenge to some of the more passively oriented players out there. So when it comes to world spawns, I'm crowning the Mini 14 as the best DMR for the reasons we've talked about through this video. In conclusion, I think it's time to kind of step away from the discussion and really say something I've said in basically every video of this nature, that really it's personal preference. You can use whatever gun you like, but I really hope that some of the topics we covered here today were useful to you. And if they were, leave a comment down below and like the video. If you have any feedback or if you want to discuss DMRs at great length in the comments like I've seen in the past, feel free to leave a comment as well. Thank you guys. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more content like this in the future. You can follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/wtfmoses and on Twitter at wtfmoses. Thanks again, guys, and until next time, I'll see you out there.